Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. All right. Welcome, friends. We've got my friend, Holly Rustick. I'm so excited to get her on the podcast. We've been WhatsApping back and forth, and she is here today. If you're new to her work, which I don't know how you could be, she is from the so popular grant writing and funding podcast. She is a grant writer. She is a coach. She's an all-around enthusiastic, fabulous person. Welcome to the podcast, Holly Rustick.
Christina, I'm so excited to be here because you've been on my podcast, Grant Writing and Funding, a couple of times, and I love that. So I was like, hey, I see you have a podcast. I was like, what's up? So this is so fun. I love that you're doing this, and you're just kicking butt. You came in and you're like, I'm going to be at 74 podcast episodes already this year. I was like, oh, you go, girl. That's amazing. That's amazing. So congratulations on your podcast. I'm super excited. I love it. I think it's great. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much. So I want to jump right in. When we were talking about the conversation that we wanted to just really dig into for this episode, you said something. I was like, yep, here's the booking link. Come on. You said my spicy belief. My spicy belief is, and let's lay it. I don't even want to say it. I want you to say it. Tell me what your hot take is in this nonprofit world. Yes.
Yeah. I have a couple hot takes. And I've been in the nonprofit world for a couple decades. So yeah, I'm not at that age, but I've been, more than 20 years. And my spicy beliefs, and one of them is quit your toxic nonprofit job. You might be like, what? I'm in it and you want me to get out? And we're going to talk about a variety of reasons of why you should and why freelancing may be a better fit for you. And we're going to talk about that. My other spicy belief, because then I have objections then about, well, but my JOB is security. It's I can depend on it. And I say, if you're in a nonprofit, your JOB is not secured. Your freelance business will be your job security, your financial stability, your emotional stability is where it's going to be. So, and we're going to dive deep into this because a lot of you might just ruffle some feathers, and that's okay. That's okay, because I got you. So we're going to dive.
And maybe we should take a slight detour, which is tell us a tiny bit about your background, because I know you from the course and coaching sector. I know you as my go-to expert. If somebody's help grants, help strategic planning, I'm like, go talk to Holly. But give us a little taste about how you got into this work and what you've been up to the past decade-ish.
Yeah. So I love the work, as far as the causes of nonprofits, and I am not dissing that at all. So just to my disclaimer, I love the work, but for me personally, getting into the nonprofit is kind of like a lot of people. It was kind of an accidental whooshing, but I started actually way back during the Asian tsunami, and I got a job in Indonesia, and I was there for a nonprofit, and I was there working and, just really realized that, oh, I'm actually writing grants right now before I even knew what I was doing, because it was just connecting community to money, right? So I was mission to money, connecting it. On. So I was boots on ground for all the local just groups of people trying to get funding from the big UN organization. So I was I'll help you, because we're just a little startup nonprofit. And I loved that. And then I went to DC and I really learned how to do the actual grant writing and all the things, and was freelance grant writing, but also working in nonprofits in a lot of different ways, right? So, of course, when I worked inside nonprofits, a lot of times it was as a grant writer because I had a lot of experience in writing grants. And what I found was that I looked at the budgets of nonprofits, right? So I understood how hard it was for them to fund a staff grant writer, and to how hard it is for them to fund a lot of staff positions. And a lot of this goes back to, it's really not the nonprofit's fault, right? Mm-hmm. It's the way nonprofits have, especially in the US, have been incorporated as 501c3s. So we go back to when that was really happening, the federal government was kind of as it turned to the civil rights movement. Basically, the federal government said, we want to funnel more monies out to community programs, right? But they had, which is great, but they had some strings attached. One of those, you cannot politically lobby as a 501c3. There's certain 501s that you can, but the biggest one is a 501c3 that most of you probably are, because you have more ability to get more grants that way, but you cannot politically lobby. And they really decided we're going to give it to programs, individual services. So that's why it's so hard for you all to get prevention grants. That's why it's so hard for you to get general operating. Not to say that they're not out there, but they're fewer and far between. Versus the individual services. So it's very much a paradigm shift of civil rights movement, social change. And we are going through that again right now. And a lot of you are developing nonprofits because you want to access some of this money. But do you see how that can be a problem then, especially how to fund your staff? Because a lot of, especially grant writers, can't be paid out for things they do before the grant is funded. So it can be very difficult, and that's where it gets really toxic. There's also a lot of things in nonprofit. So I'm just going to dive kind of right into this area as far as like, because of how that system is set up, there's then follows a lot of like, well, we can't offer health benefits. Well, we can't do this. Well, we can't do that, right? We want you to work weekends because it's for the cause, right? So there's a lot of like guilt, toxic system setup behavior, and y'all might be resonating with that right now, but especially as a grant writer, as a staff position in a nonprofit, how you are paid a lot of times, because you can't really be paid as a grant writer sometimes, right? There's ways to loophole it, but a lot of times what they do is say, you can be a program manager, a case manager, or this, but really we hired you to write grants. So now you got two full-time jobs, but you're just getting paid for one, right? And we know with grants, never-ending deadlines. You're working weekends, you're working, etc. And you're really not getting paid. Your health is suffering, your family life is suffering, and a lot of suffering, but then it's for the cause.
That's right.
And you can still work for the cause and take care of yourself. But
I think everyone is collectively nodding along with me on a lot of that. And one of the big trends we've seen this past year, and really it's kind of fever pitching, is burnout and churn in this industry, because it's like a reaction to feeling like, well, you got to work nights and weekends. You got to figure this out. Oh, this board member just found out about this grant. Can we apply for it? And you're like, oh, right. And so talk to me about the benefit of why somebody should consider coming to the other side, the other wild side, the consultant, the freelance world that we love so much. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I think, and I'll just share some of my story and weave it in here as well, as one of the reasons I left the nonprofit I was working at was because I was in that place. I was totally burned out. I'm a single mom, right? I was feeling guilty if I had to go pick her up, or if she's sick and I'm working through the nights when she's sick, like all the things, right? And I'm not saying you're not going to have seasons of your business, but really this was on a perpetual cycle loop, right? Because grants are always coming up, and then Holly, you always also do the grant management because now you want all these grants. So do that. So it was just like, constantly, I just felt so like it was such a toxic environment for my health, for my family, for everything, right? So for me, I was like very scared in a lot of sense to like quit my job and go full time. But I did because I realized like I had freelance like here and there on the side in the past. And I was like, I'm just going to do this. But my job had taken up so much of my time that I hadn't really even been doing it on the side, right? For a while. So there was a fear. I'm a single mom. There's a lot on the line. There's a lot of risk. And when I wrote my resignation letter, like to all my point of contacts, because I had a lot of point of contacts, right? Like I'm the grant writer, I know all the people, and just letting them know, hey, I'm leaving, and just to let you know, I'll be leaving the organization, and because I'm opening my own business, like I went out like that. I got clients right away. I got clients through my resignation letter.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I got my anchor clients, and I was like, whoa! And before I even knew what like an anchor client was, like I did this way back in the day, right? So I was like. Jumping in, and I don't encourage everyone to jump in. Like it is nice to have a net, and definitely I have set up in my program, the Freelance Grant Writer Academy, like my lessons learned, right, and how to do these things, like with systems in place, so you have more nets available. But because there's such a demand for, especially grant writers, but other nonprofit consultants as well, right? And because we can shift the conversation to the nonprofit to say, actually, it's more beneficial to hire me as a freelancer than as a staff, because then you don't have to pay for my taxes, my benefits, my office, my computer, You don't have to manage me. You don't have to think about me forever on payroll and always like stressing out about that. Where I can come in, maybe charge half as much as I was getting paid as an employee, right? Your rates are going to be different, y'all. We're going to talk about that. We can. But you can have multiple clients then, and you can have very clear boundaries.
That's right.
I write grants 6 weeks out minimum. I do not work weekends, right? Yes. I only write X amount of grants, and this is what we're going to write for X amount of money. Right away, you have a different relationship with the executive director as a consultant versus staff. You can control your boundaries more. And because you can take multiple clients and you can set up systems to work with clients with repetitive systems of what you do, grant templates, etc., right? Then it's easier for you to make more money and to have more time and just to work with the causes you totally believe in.
That's right. So you have so much more choice.
So much more choice. And jobs, like your job security has just increased because I've seen so many people have come into my program because they've gotten fired, laid off, they've had to quit. So toxic. The grant that they were under didn't get renewed. So they go off, right? All the things. You have no control over what happens within nonprofit. Nonprofits' budgets, you all know, are very tenuous. They're very dynamic. Yep. So it's okay if you lose one client, you can get another one.
You know, what's coming to mind is this idea of the culture of a nonprofit. And I often kind of joke, but no, really, I'm too much of a wild horse now to ever go to a 9 to 5, right? Like I'm too much. Like I don't like things to go slow. I like to be able to voice my opinion. If I can see a faster, more impactful way, I want to do that. Yep. And I think sometimes when you're stuck in the structure, whether it's like the org chart structure or the cultural structure of an organization, it is really hard to speak up. It is really hard to say, let's go after this one and not this one. But when you're a consultant, you guys, you get to you have your own organization culture. You get to say, you know what, that doesn't fit for me, or here's how I will take this on, but in this way. And it's so fun. It's the best.
You're expected. Think about that. You're expected to step up like that. If you're just doing anything, they're going to step all over you. There's no respect like that. It's but if you step up and you're like, this is how we run our organization. We onboard this way. You come in with your nonprofit, then we're going to look for this many grants and we're going to write X amount of grants in this time frame. This is what's going to happen. They're like, thank you. Now I don't have to think about that. That's such
and it actually is a service to them to be clear, to be very specific and clear, and sometimes bold, right? And sometimes they may be like, oh, wow, okay. And you're going to dig into this. You have a webinar coming up. I want to make sure everybody knows that it's happening. So tell us a little bit, what will attendees get from that webinar? Anyone who's like, okay, this is interesting, but ... say more.
Yeah, definitely come. So it is on January 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So even if you're working full time, you got the evening to show up. There will be a replay, but you do have to register for it. And it is quit your toxic nonprofit job and replace your full-time income with grant writing. So we are going to talk about, you're going to walk away knowing how that's a possibility for you, right? We're going to really get into the grittiness of it as far as what does the grant world look like out there? How can you actually, why is it saturated or not? And it's not, right? We're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about how you actually can do this to replace your income. So if you're making $40,000 a year, $100,000 a year, you can replace your full-time income. Plus, right, because you also have to pay for your taxes, you have to pay for certain things, because you might have heard that before and that freaked you out. Let me tell you, it's not as much as you think it is. And it's going to give you the ability to really make that decision. Is this right for me? Right? Do I need to start this as a side hustle and have an exit strategy at a certain time? Or, just in case, that's what it gives you power to do. It might give you start a freelance business on the side, no matter what it is, a side hustle. What it does is it gives you more power, because you see, okay, if inflation goes up, even though my paycheck isn't going up, in response to that, I have some extra income. Or my boss is dumping this on me, or this is I'm feeling very this is not healthy. Now I can step up and ask for a raise. It actually gives you the empowerment, you feel more empowered just because you have more financial stability, right? And what that does for your brain is really impressive.
100%. Yeah. And there are some of us who are like, nope, I'm all in. I want to do this consulting business. Yes. And there are many of us, including myself, who was like, total side gig until I figured it all out because I had a mortgage to pay. I just also wanted that safety net, and I get that. And now with kids too, it's like I would imagine if I was in my those shoes now, I would also say, okay, how do I do this? So maybe I'm writing an extra grant or two a month, and what would that do for my family? And then going, okay, my favorite part about being an entrepreneur is you guys, we do not have to keep 9 to 5 hours. Like my kid's program is he's playing saxophone. I cannot wait for him to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Oh my gosh. I get to go to it. It's the middle of the day. I've blocked my calendar. I don't have to ask anyone's permission. It's not a problem. And
yeah, all
yes,
of
yeah,
them.
all of that great stuff is. So let's dig into, I want to talk about the income piece because I feel like that's a big thing for people is like, I get it. Like it can be really hard to say, okay, but right now I'm making $50,000 a year and it feels too big and too far away. Who would I even ask? Where would these clients come from, Holly? Like, how do we give people like bite-sized actual, because I know you've got people in the academy right now where it's like, what does it actually look like in practice to move over?
I love it. And I love, excuse me, the people that like come into and be like, you know what, I'm going to replace my full-time income working part-time because that's what our promise is,
my
right?
kind of people.
Do it. Yeah. And they do it while they're working full-time. So the program is 12 months. It gives you a long time, like a good chunk of time. We're not just like, oh, here it is, 4 weeks later, see you later, right? We want to give you time to process through this, right? To be able to set it up. So I love it when folks, there's a lot in there right now. One lady, she was just like, she goes, I was going to quit my full-time job in Q1 of 2024. But she said, I already could do it in October of 2023. So a whole quarter before she had estimated, she was like, I'm done. I quit my full time and I'm just freelancing now. Like I've been able to set up the clients to do that. And that's really our premise too, is it's not just about like come in and work your grind, right? We understand a lot of folks that come in the program, they're already burned out. They're already like, because they've been working in nonprofits, they already have so much, they want like more of a schedule, they want more freedom. So the point isn't like work. It's about how do you set up systems then in a way where you have time, right? And we actually show you like you can create these so you can repeat your processes. So you need to hire a VA or somebody like a virtual assistant or somebody to come in, or another grant writer under you to help you out. So a lot of people like to get that set up and they have a well-oiled machine, and then they're actually not even working as much. They're working part-time because they have the systems in place. So from a financial point of view, it's very, very like you can do this. 50,000 really is not a lot of money. Yeah. How many clients is that? A few maybe, right? If you have retainer clients, which you fully set up, you can set up who you want to work with. You can identify what causes you want to move forward, and actually niching down like that will get you more clients.
That's right.
So I see people that come in and they're like, I want to work with Black-owned like agriculture to create legacy for land ownership. And I'm like, yes.
That specificity, people are looking for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
There are nonprofits
Great tip.
That will relate to you. Your marketing is going to be just like easy because that's what you're going to be marketing about. You're writing blogs about that, whatever you want to do, right? Or a lot of y'all, you don't even need to go online. As a freelance grant writer, here's the other thing is I'm not like, I have a lot of introverts, actually a lot of grant writers.
That was my next question. Okay, let's talk about them. Yes.
And I'm always like low-hanging fruit. A lot of people, all they need to do is start with our matrix. So we have a matrix of like a low-hanging fruit marketing matrix of like who you know. And I give you scripts and everything of like how you could tweak this. Here's a little email, or here's a phone call message, or here's just like a DM message. And it's starting with people you actually know, right? And most people get booked out just like that. And I always say like, what's funny, I always say being a grant writer is the best party trick at any networking event. Any networking event or conference you go to, as soon as people go, what do? You're a grant writer. You'll get at least 3 heads will whip around and look at you and go, I need your card. I know somebody or I need one. It's not hard to get clients as a freelance grant writer at all. It's actually one of the easiest things in your business. What we do most coaching on is just like, how do I do my prices? How do I do my packages? How do I build up my retainers? Where's a memorandum of understanding? I'm writing a grant. Like, we have all of that inside our program. So we teach you the grant writing skills, but we also give grant reviews. So you're like, I don't even know if this is good
So you get both. Okay. So you get the how do I grant write skills, like that entire, you're going to build up that capacity. And then you're going to get the part that you and I have basically just learned through. Okay, that didn't work. And okay, that did work. We've DIY'd, which is fine, which is like contracts, like you said, just pricing. Oh my gosh, pricing. What do I want to offer? What do I want to niche down on or not niche down on? All of those pieces, they get the support there. I think that's the piece that a lot of people who are considering moving into freelancing and consulting feels really like it feels hard. And I get that. And I just want to honor that. Like, it does feel hard to be like, well, what's market rate? And what do I say? And what do I charge? And I remember my first meeting and completely undercharging. And now it's so sweet. Like, I think of sweet Christina, who was like, I'll do that for $200. But it was like, listen, I didn't know what I didn't know. And to have somebody to help you through that learning curve a little faster it's the best. It's the best.
It's huge. Yeah, we have our how to do value-based pricing. And then we really get deep into that. We have even like when you have thoughts that come up around that, because a lot of it's based on your money trauma and your, like trauma and all of your experiences with money and everything. So it does take some like looking at yourself and introspection for sure. And we honor that. So we have a self-coaching part as well that we really work with.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, like I'm suffering with guilt over charging a nonprofit. They're asking me to do it for free and I'm having feelings around this. So we really get into, we actually have a program inside. It's our ethical nonprofit sales strategies. So we really get into that too, because a lot of times you might think you're doing the nonprofit a huge favor by doing pro bono work or whatever. And there's a time and a place for that, but we show you how to like kind of navigate where that time and place is and how you could actually be doing a disservice if you're not out there advertising about who you are and what you do, right? People need your services, right? They do. And if they pay at such a deep discount or for free, a lot of times they're not actually going to do the work to get it done. So there's also give and take that we talk about there. And it really does help people then show up more confident about what they do and really understand the value. So we also have like a pitch deck in Canva that we help them with, all the things, just so they feel like, okay, they understand completely their services. So we love that because that part of like how are sales ethical in the nonprofit space?
Yeah, it can feel muddy and confusing, right?
Yeah. And we don't want you to feel icky about charging a price that you're like, but that is what I should be charging.
That's right.
So it's like, we don't say these are the rates to charge. We work with each person individually from where they are. Like if you are in New York City, your pricing is going to be different than someone in rural, like, Wyoming. Like it could be,
and
right?
That's like okay. Your overhead costs more, that's okay. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's like also looking at each person and where they're at and working them through that. So we do love to give a lot of feedback and reviews. We have a daily Slack channel. We meet up twice a month. So we can really coach people individually through how they're working through that. So we love it. We have our curriculums like top notch so they can go through that as well. But we love to give the reviews, like work on it, let us see it. If you have any feelings about it or thoughts or why aren't you showing that? Why aren't you sending that out?
Yes.
That's what we need to talk about right then. It's that thought about that price.
Yeah.
Thought about showing up. So we actually have a whole script too on what questions, so what objections you're going to get as a grant writer specifically.
Oh, that's smart.
So because you're going to get a lot of objections like, well, can you work on commission? Can you work for free? Can you give a deep discount? Do you have a grant writing certification? What's your ROI? And we show you like, depending on where you are, here's how you can respond and step into this response with confidence, because that can hold a lot of people back just because they don't exactly know how to respond to that.
I have heard, like, I've had clients say, oh, blah, 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 this grant writer, can they do it on commission? I'm like, you guys, stop it. So everyone, yes. Collectively, if you hear that in the wild, no. You cannot. No. And go ahead and
how you can respond in like an ethical way of being like, it's because it's against best practices. It's because you actually can't do that. A federal grant will not actually give you that budget. You know what I mean? So you know how to talk, because it's not necessarily the nonprofit's fault, a lot of these questions at all. It's once again, it's a more of a system of toxicity that they're not even aware of, right? So it's like just being, it's not the individual. It's like, hey, we just need to educate you in your, when you're doing your discovery sales call. Like, this is how you can respond to those objections in a very ethical way, and not like as a mad or angry way, like, you guys, don't you know? Like, but you know what I mean? Like, we can be like, oh, it's because of this, and that's why we don't do that. And it's like, oh, and most nonprofits are like, oh, I didn't know that. They just didn't know because there's so many urban myths out there, right?
There are.
So they just fall into that. And it's not their fault, but we got to educate them. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I want to offer that because you and I have been basically on the outside as consultants for a long, long time, working with so many organizations, like across the board. I know that you have worked with so many internationally, different types, different everything. Can we both just say that no matter how tiny, tiny, tiny and big, big, big they are, they use freelancers. They hire consultants. Like, I could see that too, of being like, well, only this type of nonprofit will no. And I could say having
smaller ones
tend
to more. Right. And the larger ones will too. I've gotten huge institutions and organizations have hired me and my clients, right, to do different grant writing. And it's, you know,
there's a place for both. There's a place for all of it. And the other piece that I was thinking, particularly for the smaller organizations, that maybe their starting salary for a full-time person would be like $30,000 a year, where you're like, no, this is a no, right? I can't survive off of this. They can pay somebody less. They could pay you as a grant writer, as a consultant, less than that. You could get more awards for them. So they get more money. You get paid more because you have multiple clients. I'm like, this is just back to like this more is more philosophy that I love so much, which is just like, there is a way. I guess here's my premise. There is a way to stay in the nonprofit sector and not leave the nonprofit sector and deliver tons of value, serve, and make a ton of money. Like, you get to do those things. And I think the part of the challenge is that people feel like to work and serve in the nonprofit sector means that I have to make, maybe I can top out at 60K, 70K. It's like, I understand and no, like, what if we just reject that and we do this better thing over here and still stay in this?
And it will help the nonprofit's budget, right? Like, even if you said like, okay, 30,000 is what they're advertising for salary, I could never do that. But if you came in on retainer and said 3,000 a month, and I'm going to write X number of grants, that's actually more than 30,000. But in their heads, they're like, oh, that's better for us. Like,
sure.
Ways that you can, you know, I'm going to do this. But think about taking on a couple of those clients, 2 or 3 of those clients, right? Like that, and that's not difficult. Like, it's not difficult. And like you said, like, I see a lot of startup nonprofits, like their first ED is like a consultant sometimes, like it's crazy, right? And like, but they can budget better. Like, there's so many things with hiring nonprofit or consultants. So even with, I tell a lot of folks, and I've done this personally, so I tell a lot of my folks in my program too, is if you see a job, like a job advertisement in a nonprofit for a grant writer, apply for your business if you love that. Like, use your business and be like, my business can actually come on and do that job, but we'll do it under a contract. We'll be a contractor. Because a lot of times nonprofits have never even thought about that.
That is right. And as a consultant, I have been offered the job and I'm like, thank you and no. And guess what? They still keep me on. They've still kept me on and said, we love you, please stay. And you can, and it's like, that is the best of both worlds, because I get to say, I'm out of town these 2 weeks. I'm traveling these 2 weeks. These are the blocks on my calendar. I'm not asking for approval. Again, this is how I like structure the business, and that ability, that freedom, I think it's just the best. It's the best.
Yeah. So you can be creative with it, right? And even before, I've had like JOBs while working as a freelancer, and I've just thought of them as a VIP client. Like, that's how they're paying me. So even coming in with that paradigm has really helped a lot of people be like, okay, this is just like a gig, like it's a good VIP client. And, you know, but they're paying my taxes for that contract. It's like,
oh my gosh, I love it. It's so smart. Yeah.
And then keeping, like, you're still keeping clients on the side. You're still mentally like, I'm still a business owner, and you will have a different relationship with the ED for sure when you walk into something like that. I've also had people in the program then do work as a consultant and then get hired from the nonprofit later on. And they love that. Once again, they treat it like a VIP client. They've gotten better wages than they've ever gotten
Yep.
before. One of the ladies in my program, super cool. She wrote this grant, $2.5 million for this nonprofit. They hired her then after 3 weeks of negotiation. I don't really want to do it. But because the salary was huge, best benefits she ever got. Then it was in 3 weeks, she got a promotion and another pay raise in that nonprofit.
That is, but like
you're a VIP,
listen,
hey, you're not my boss.
That's right. She's not a unicorn though. And that's the best part is like she did it and she's not a unicorn and this is possible. And this isn't a single unicorn nonprofit and one unicorn person finding each other. It's like, no, this is what you get to do. And I also think for stay-at-home moms, for single moms or caretakers, I think several people in my life are caretaking for their parents. It's like, this is such a great place when you're like, I cannot report 9 to 5 in office. I have caretaking to do. It's like to be able to have, but I need stable income. And that's the magic there for sure. So we covered like one of the biggest things, which I wanted to make sure we cover, which is like, oh, but I don't want to market. I don't want to sell. Right. So what I hear you saying is that you don't have to go live on your Facebook page and, do all of the things.
No. Yes. Even a lot of people in my program don't even have websites yet.
Like, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. They're like, and I'm like, stop fiddling with your website to the other half.
I'm so glad you said that. It's true.
Do that. Just pick up the phone. You know who
That's right. That's right. Don't worry about your logo. Don't worry about your logo, your website, your brand colors. Let's go get you some business. Yeah. That's like,
you don't need all of that. Like, it's almost like the old school, like Rolodex, that's all you need. Right. So, and it's like building that. How do you build that? Well, that's pretty easy too. You figure out what cause areas you really want to support and you go to some of those conferences and those networking events. Like I said, all you need to say is, I'm a grant writer and you've got the party trick. So like you can literally, another girl just last week, this is so funny, all these things, like this is what happens in our program. Like every week we have these amazing things that are happening. Same thing. She's like, I'm fully booked out with my clients now. And she said, just because I just went to a networking event and I basically was like, in conversation, was like, oh yeah, I'm a grant writer. And then I'm done. Like I'm solid now. I was like, all right, we're good. Within a few months of being in the program. Yeah. Just because of, it's like, yes, we can do low hanging, easy things. We don't have to do hard things. It doesn't all have to be like these crazy, crazy systems and tech and all the things. Like you don't need that. Like, it's a skill and you just need to know how to connect your skill to the right people and know how to, what you want to sell. Right. So when you're very clear on who you are and what causes you want to serve, that's all we need. Like I can teach you the skills. Like we're going to also help you articulate that. And then it's like, okay, how do you do your pricing? Well, here's a few different ways, get some feedback. Here you go. Get out there and get your clients. Like it doesn't have to be difficult. But even throughout that process, right? Once people get clients, sometimes they're like, oh, I have a problem or like, this is happening. We coach through that as well. And a lot of times that's usually because like maybe your policies, we have to go back to your policies, what your policies about, like how like you would do grants. Are you actually resting in your policies? Are you implementing your policies? So we talk a lot about the business operations as well, which I love because we want people to be like, yes, I'm showing up 100% for my clients. And that's usually like if they had clients before they came in the program, before they had their policies, but we can work on those. We can tweak those. We can help you with those. Because we also have people that do come in going like, I just haven't got momentum in my business. So we help with that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, policies are, again, one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I figured those out along the way. Right. Where I was like, I need that policy. I remember being like, oh, gonna put that in the contract of just like things that you learn through kind of trial and error. So it's nice to have a place where it's like, okay, we got you. It's so funny because of how much you're talking about the parallel of starting and running a thriving grant writing business and what it takes to online fundraise, what it takes to become a really powerful nonprofit leader. Like there's so many through lines, and a lot of it is for me just it's less of the like, don't worry about your website and more about like direct outreach. 1 or 2 relationships can make or break. And it doesn't mean we're making you go stand on a TEDx stage or something really like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To have a business that's really thriving. I think that's the place that people either get stuck or that it feels just really hard, the marketing part, or maybe the systems part. And it makes me think about when I brought on my more recent VA this year. And I thought I had systems. And she was like, I'm going to make you systems. And it's like, yes, you can hire out for some of that stuff. You can hire your weaknesses of just like, I had a framework for her, but boy, did she make it like 10x better. And I told her, I was like, I've been using this framework for 5 years and I've had multiple people go through it. You nailed it. Like you made it better. And so you can bring out on people who help you at a very low cost. She could be a couple hours a week or something like that. So that feeling of isolation that I think that sometimes people get overwhelmed with freelancing doesn't have to quite be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And we have we also have, once you reach 50K in your business, you get into our quarterly club as well, where we teach more like accelerated concepts, because we don't want to overwhelm everyone who's starting out there too, because then they are going to dive into that website. They are going to like start tinkering like courses and all of the things. We're like, no, just wait. All you need to be doing is working in your business right now, writing grants, like and getting clients. That's it. 2 things. That's it. Don't be doing all the other things. Then when you get there, then we'll take you to the next level. But let's first get you there, right? Like, let's get you there first. So we do have where we can do that with them. And we have some tiered kind of opportunities for people as they're going through the program, right? Yeah.
Is there anything else, that I haven't asked that you would like to share about? And we're going to, before my last and final question, anything else you feel like your people should know? My people should know.
Yeah, I think, anyone who's working with nonprofits and in the nonprofit sector to really think about what they're doing. Am I really showing up in a way that I can really drive impact in the best way? And that might be a hell yes for where you're at right now. And it might be, I'm not sure. And here's what I'm talking about is a lot of people, they might be like, I want to have a meaningful job, so I'm going to go start a nonprofit, or I'm going to go work inside a nonprofit. But there's other opportunities, or I'm going to go the soup kitchen once a year, which is great. All of those things are great, but there's other skills that you might be able to have a bigger impact that suit your personality more, like freelance grant writing. Like we're going to throw that out there, right? Like you can generate millions of dollars for causes. It's not just like volunteering once a month. Like you can literally generate millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even $10,000, right? In grants, like all these things to drive a cause forward that you're passionate about. And maybe you are more like, I like to work behind the keyboard. I like to do like more analytical work. I like writing, right? I like to figure out these puzzle pieces. This is actually where like going out and volunteering at a fundraiser is not where I'm comfortable. You can have a lot, and not to say that there's not impact there, but you can have a lot of impact
significant
in other positions. That you may have just never thought about, even if that's helping like as a nonprofit consultant, right? Like what you do, Christina, right? Like helping with marketing, like you can bring millions of dollars of funders and donors because you're working in a skill that really lights you up. And it doesn't have to be like the traditional, like, oh, you started a nonprofit. Like there's a lot of nonprofits out there. Do we really need to be starting more? Maybe for some causes, but for a lot of them, there's a lot of overlap actually, right?
Yes.
So we want to focus on what is the most impactful thing that you can be doing? And do you need to like suffer by doing it? No, you don't.
Right. You don't.
So
you don't.
You don't need to be martyrs in the nonprofit world to make causes that we believe in like helpful. Like I see so many people like working to the bone. Their family life is like nothing because they're working so hard because they're so passionate about like a program for children, like the nonprofit serves children. And their own children, they hardly have any time with. And I'm not trying to shame or blame. I'm just putting facts on the table. Like sometimes we feel like we have to give so much to something that we take away from ourselves. And that is toxic. That is not healthy. So really have a look at yourself and see where you are, maybe in that prism. Like, you know what I mean? Like where are you at? What is the lens on that? That would be my main kind of takeaway. And to be like, there is a way where you can be very impactful with a skill that you can learn that really like jives with your personality and with who you are. Yeah.
My husband shared this like Instagram post with me and it like resonated with both of us. And it was basically like your employer won't remember all the nights and weekends you worked, but your kids will. Like they will. Your employer's not going to remember that Tuesday night or that Saturday night or whatever. They're not going to. And so just to remember that, I think it was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay. The
But you
last
can
question.
still drive forward the impact. You can still do
But you
the
still
positive
can't.
with the thing.
Yeah.
You can still do
Yes.
it in a healthy way.
That's
So,
right.
yeah,
That's
you can
right.
even do it better. You can even do it when you're not burned out, when you can show up 100%, when you're just focusing on the skill that you're good at instead of all the meetings that you don't need to really attend, but you have to, and all the other things that you have to go to as an employee. You can cut that out and just focus on the skill that you're good at and drive forward impact that way. And
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, because that's how we work faster is when we're not in all these extra meetings as an employee that have nothing to do with us, right? And we're actually fast tracking, getting the client exactly what they need and doing it in our own time. Like we literally work faster. I know I do for sure. Yeah.
And then employees are burned out because they're like, I can't reach my milestones because you're making me do all this other things as needed, right?
Yes.
All other as needed in their job description. That's all they're really hanging out in, not the other things. Yeah.
Okay. Last question we ask on the podcast is, what is one thought that you like to think on purpose? So this could be an affirmation, a mantra, just something that's like a guiding post for you that you're like, yeah, that gives me a little something.
Oh, I like that. I have a lot of them. I always kind of like switch up my thoughts, but I think, one that I've really nestled in a lot is I am enough. And I love that because it's simple. It's not like I'm amazing or I'm this. It's just I'm enough. And I think when we show up knowing, like for me, it's really been this mantra of like, I'm enough, even if I don't feel like enough today or whatever, I am. And I just think that's a beautiful kind of simple takeaway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm enough.
So you all
I love
are
it.
enough.
Enough. That's right. Like say it out loud. Yes.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you, hang out with you? I know we're going to link to the webinar, which is happening on January 10th.
Yep.
Okay. Tell us all the things.
People can definitely find us at grantwritingandfunding.com. And I know you'll have that in the show notes. So you can hang out over there. We'll have our link to our webinar, more information about us. You can also join our freelance grant writer hub haven, where every single week we give out our stress-free nugget for grant writers and freelance grant writers. So we love to have that. We also drop our podcast. As y'all are podcast listeners, you can definitely jump over to Grant Writing and Funding. Christina's been on it a couple of times, so you'll want to grab those links. And we just celebrated our 300th episode last week. Yes, I'm really excited about that. So definitely join us over there if you're interested in more of these concepts. We're dropping a lot of what we've learned with freelance grant writers, how we train them, our formulas in our program, all of the things. We talk about grant writing, we talk about all of the things. So definitely, join us at our webinar if any of this resonated with y'all today and you're just like, you know what, that kind of
sign up for the webinar. You'll dig. You have the same, I feel like, level of enthusiasm that I do. So if you dig me, you'll dig her. And also you do, I see you run your business. There's a lot of overlap in values to mine. You send amazing value-packed emails and you are unapologetic. You're unapologetic about sending emails to your audience. We didn't even talk about that today, but everybody who's listened to this podcast knows I talk about email all the time. So at the very least, sign up for the webinar, join the email list, and you can get a sense of what is trending in the sector, what's working, and what you've got cooking. Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you join, you guys are going to get emails. So be ready for it. But we give, like you said, very value-led. We talk about the things in our program. We highlight our concepts and our industry concepts. So you really understand that. You're on our list to know about those things. So we want to let you know. So yeah, if you're interested in more, how do I even send more emails? Join my email list.
Amazing.
we can show you. Yeah. And I love that you do that too, Christina. We talked about that. Yeah.
We're go email. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was so fun.
Thank you, Christina. This is awesome.
All right. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
You know how they say you should enjoy the journey, not just the destination? Have you ever wondered, how do I crack the code to do that? I can help you do that. I can help you not only achieve your biggest, most daring goals, but the journey to get there. No more overwhelm, no more self-doubt. I want to invite you to book a call with me. Go to splendidatl.com/book. Think you've reached out to everyone in your network? Are you out of ideas to get noticed and get funded? I hear you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to steal my prospect list. Yes, you can generate leads for your nonprofit or impact-driven business. Grab my mini training and list delivered to your inbox instantly. Go to splendidcourses.com/prospect.